Number 6. Moss from a dead man's skull.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Imagine you're on your way home when you suddenly see someone holding a skull in the air. When you ask him, "What are you doing?" he replies, "Curing epilepsy and wounds." Yep, you heard that right. Back in the medieval ages, people thought that moss from a dead man's skull would cure disorders and diseases. You get curious and want to dig up some skulls as well because why not, right? But where do you start? Good question. Usually the skulls were dug up in battlefields or execution grounds, as people thought those who died a violent death became more powerful spirits. That moss was then very carefully dried into a powder, and the lucky patient was told to ingest the powder.
Oh, hell no, man.
As you can imagine, the moss was infected with all types of bacteria to give it that extra bit of flavor.
What?
Instead of healing you, you became even sicker, because there is a good chance that with the delicious moss you just ate, you also consumed various infections, poisons, diseases, and parasites. Not only that, but you also have a hard time digesting the moss. Thanks, doctor. While these side effects are, well, not ideal, the taste is so bad that the moss makes a 180 in your stomach, and you start spray painting your doctor. Number 5. Mummy powder.
Bruh.
If you thought number 7 was strange, buckle up, because it will get a whole lot stranger. Mummy powder, or mumia, is exactly what it sounds like. Ground up mummified human remains. They often were stolen straight out of Egyptian tombs, because apparently Egypt had the best mummies.
The fuck?
This meant sailors would travel from Europe to Egypt just to steal mummies and ground them up. Because mummies were so well preserved, it was believed that they possessed powerful medical properties and healing abilities. Yeah, people weren't the smartest back then. After the mummy was ground, it was mixed with resins or herbs to enhance the perceived efficiency, and voila, your 5-star meal was ready. The mummy was then eaten or applied to wherever your ouchie was. Oh, what's that? You don't want to eat mummy remains mixed with resin and herbs? That's okay. Just remember, when the mummy tastes bad, eat some moss instead. Thankfully, as humans evolved during the Age of Enlightenment, mummy powder was used less and less. Unless you're some weird guy who likes the taste of mummy powder and sails to Egypt every summer to steal some mummies, prepare them in a never-before-seen way, open a restaurant called Mr. Mummy, and feed your customers mummy powder just to look at them from afar with a creepy smirk on your face. But I'm sure that's not you, right? Number 4. Animal dung ointments. Are you even surprised to see a medical practice that uses feces at this point? Because I wasn't after reading about moss from a dead man's skull and mummy powder. You see, it was believed that diseases were caused by imbalances in the body, and animal feces were thought to restore the body's balance. People used all types of feces, that of cows, pigs, dogs, and even birds. After the dung was collected, it would be dried and mixed with oils and herbs. The mixture was then directly applied to the skin. I'm just glad it wasn't eaten. Well, I spoke too soon, because if you had a toothache, the feces mixture was applied to the tooth that was hurting. I know, gross, but it gets even stranger. You see, it wasn't only used for wounds, skin eruptions, or toothaches, it was also used for childbirth. Yep, childbirth. The dung would be smeared all over the woman's stomach, lower back, and pelvic area, and when the upcoming mother was successfully covered in feces, she could have a pain-free birth.
A few moments later.
Brother, ugh. What's that?
At least this is what people thought. It was believed that dung ointments had healing powers due to ancient folkloric beliefs that were passed on from generation to generation. Some dung-based medical practices even persisted for around 1,000 years. What a shit show. Number 3. Urine therapy. Believe it or not, urine therapy was widely used across ancient Egypt, India, Rome, and Greece. It's pretty simple. People were prescribed to drink people's urine. That's it. Drinking urine was thought to purify the body and heal diseases. Urine was also used for skin and hair care. For example, people used urine as face wash to improve their skin, or as shampoo to strengthen their hair. There even were urine drops for your eyes and ears meant to battle infections.
Look at this dude.
Fresh urine was often drunk immediately after collecting it. Aged urine was usually stored for days or weeks to enhance its perceived healing abilities. Ancient Roman dentists used toothpaste to whiten their teeth. And guess what it was made of? Correct, urine and goat milk. Because why not? As you can see, urine was used a lot, from mouthwash to eye and eardrops to shampoo to teeth whitening to face wash. And if you or I had lived during those times, we probably wouldn't have escaped urine therapy because apparently it was everywhere. In China, there is the Urine Therapy Association, with thousands of members who still drink urine to this day, as they believe it heals the body and cures diseases. But that's not all. In 2022, Thawi Nanra, a self-proclaimed holy man from Thailand, was arrested by the police because his followers were observed to drink his urine and eat his feces, which they believed had healing powers. I'm gonna be honest with you, I never thought that this list would turn out to be so disgusting. But oh well, here we are. Number 2, dead man's hand. As you can see, people during ancient civilizations were obsessed with dead people because folks back then were very superstitious, and the use of a dead man's hand as a medical treatment has to be one of the most bizarre medical practices in history. This practice involved using a dead person's hand in rituals to cure diseases, ward off evil spirits, and bring good fortune and luck. People thought that touching a dead person could transfer special abilities and powers. The hands of deceased people were believed to retain spiritual energy, which could be harnessed. After the hand was obtained, you'd dry it or mummify it to preserve it. We don't want your hand to go to waste. The hand was at times used against tumors. How, you might ask? Well, by rubbing the dead person's hand on the tumor.
The fuck?
I'll take a wild guess and say that this didn't do the trick. But oh well. I guess if the people back then didn't do the things they did, we couldn't do the things we do nowadays. The hand was also used as a good luck talisman, and sometimes people even went as far as burying the hand under their house or hung it above the doorway for protection. Seems like Halloween was all year back then. Some even locked the hand away in a safe or hid it in a secret place where you could never find it, if you ever thought about stealing some hands. Hey man, yo, what's up? I'm digging a hole, could you give me a hand? Sure, which one? Number 1, trepanning. Believe it or not, trepanning is one of the oldest medical practices known to humanity, and sadly, it's one of the worst as well. It involves drilling or cutting a hole into your skull and was usually performed by physicians. You had 2 options. Option 1, the physician used a trephine to cut your head open, or option 2 is that he used a hand drill. Either way, it wouldn't be much of a difference because you'll suffer a shock, brain damage, or excessive bleeding anyway. At least they got you a fresh cut before beginning the surgery because they first shaved your head and the area where the surgery would take place was cleaned. Why was trepanation even a thing? Good question. It was believed that removing pieces of the skull would relieve pressure on the brain. Thus it was used for fractures, hematomas, and head injuries, which is quite ironic considering that you just got a hole drilled into your head. The other reason was that people thought removing a piece of the skull would release evil spirits that lived rent-free in your head. Trepanning was meant to give them a first-class ticket out of your head. To numb the pain, you'd either be given alcohol or herpes, which I'm sure helped a lot. The physician would make a series of small holes in a circular pattern on the skull to remove a piece of bone. To prevent infections, your wound would be treated with ointments made from herbs or honey and bandaged afterward. Guess what ointments were also used? Yep, dung ointments. Surprisingly, most people lived on after trepanation. Am I the only one who has a headache after all of this? Guess it's time to go trepanning.